Kia ora friends, welcome back to my studio. I'm Gina, and in today's video we're going to be finishing off the window details. So I'm going to be adding some of that lattice effect, sort of more of the Tudor style window, as well as creating some louvered vents, which will be adding some detail into the roof line, finishing off all of the beams and the wood paneling. So let's get started. To begin with, what I'm going to do is start to build out these little louvered air vents. They're not really windows, but I'm going to use the same process as I've done for the windows, and I've just cut these out on my little Cricut Joy, and because they are basically cut out of cardstock, I'm going to layer up the cardstock to add some depth and dimension into the little air vents, and these are just going to go on into the roof line, just add that extra little bit of detail. So I'm just going to do this on both sides of the little louver. I've created this as a printable file, which I'll put a link in the description below if you are wanting to create these for yourself. So I'll add in all of those details in there. So that's pretty much them done, and then we can move on to adding a bit more of the wood paneling. So I've pre-painted all of these, and these are to create the roof line. I'm going to cover these on the outside, that's why they're not painted on both sides. Pre-painting them means that I don't have to worry about trying to get my paintbrush into the little nooks and crannies, and I can be rest assured that it's got a good coverage of paint. So to add the louver details into these little printouts, they print out completely flat, but they do have little cuts in them, and that comes in the printable files that I've got in the description below. And all I'm doing is using some flat tweezers and just going in and just twisting them ever so slightly. They don't need much, just a little bit, and just using the benefit that it's actually cardstock, basically twisting and bending to give me the louver effect. So that looks really good, and I'm really happy with that. And then I'm just going to add a little bit of cardstock to the outside, just the same as I've done with the other windows as well. If you want to see what I've done with those, I'll put a link in the description for the video on that. And then all I'm going to do is start continuing on building out the wood paneling. So now I can add in the beams. So this is the rest of the beam work, as well as the very top. So this is a bit more detail around those little notches that I create to be able to create some nice corners. There's probably a name for these, and I'm sure somebody will be able to tell me what that is. And this is just the very top piece of this part of the roof line, and now I can glue those into place and add in some more of those beam structure. So one thing I could have done is actually pre-painted all of these, but I didn't, and so now I've had to get my brush into all of those little nooks and crannies. So now we can go on to creating all of the paneling on the outside, and I've literally just sped this up to create a little bit of a montage because this took a long time to do. Till we get to this point, and what I want to do here is create another little one of those vent windows, and again using the cardstock, using my Cricut Joy, cutting these out. Again, the file will be in the description below, and just layering it up to add a little bit of texture. There will be some more that will get added to this to the outside, so this is really just for the window. And then I'm just using the same sort of technique as I've done for the other windows, although rounding this one at the top, just to create that roof line for that little dormer vent. And then I can pop that into place and then finish off the rest of the paneling. So moving on to the windows, I've again used my Cricut Joy and created this file as well, which I'll put in the link below, and just very slowly weeding out all the little bits in between, just using some bit of transfer tape, and then using a bit of greaseproof paper just so that it didn't stick to the window too much or too quickly. and I used a light to shine it in from underneath as well. So now I'm happy with those, and I can glue those into place. So they're looking really, really good now. And that just really finished off those windows because I was not too sure quite how to do those. Moving on to the finishing off the beams on the inside, I created a bit of a template out of some MDF. That's on the inside edge, and then I've also got another little template for the outside edge. Now, this allowed me to keep all of these shapes for these curved beams all the same size. I'm just going to go through and pre-paint these on all sides because I'm not really too sure what's going to be seen. Didn't want to assume maybe the back of it could be seen. Let's just paint the whole things. And then once they're all painted and I'm really happy with that, then I can start gluing them into place. So I'm just going to work my way around and glue those into place and allow that to dry. I'm really happy with how that's turned out. So there we go, it's all finished and I'm really happy, really happy with how it's turned out. I'm super stoked with how those windows have turned out with the lattice effect on them. I guess if I was going to do it again, I'd probably try and do that all in one step. So the window frame as well as the lattice, rather than trying to do it in 2 steps, because it hasn't quite lined up perfectly, but it's good enough. So one thing I wanted to share with you is that I have bought a new toy. It is a 3D printer. It is an FDM printer, so it's one with the coil filament. And the reason why I've gone with that printer specifically is that I live in a small apartment, and having a liquid resin printer, I wasn't too sure how I was going to manage the odors and the chemicals and all of that, whereas the filament printer allows me to kind of dip my toe in and see whether it's something that I actually like. But the main reason why I bought it was to create some of the gargoyles on the outside of the building. So I'm really excited to see how that comes together. So if you found this video helpful, hit that like button. It really does help the channel. It connects in with YouTube's algorithm and allows my videos to be shared with a much wider audience. So please jump in there and give it a thumbs up. And while you're there, consider subscribing and following along on this journey. I've got a couple more videos to come with Ophelia Hall before I move on to something else. So one thing that's coming up soon is another miniature show. So I did one last year and I'm doing another one in August this year. It's going to come around really quickly, and there's a couple of projects that I really want to put in there, but they're not quite finished. So I think I'll move on to finishing off those. I'd love to get Ophelia Hall finished for that show, but we'll see how we go. Have a fabulous week, everybody, and until next week, I'll see you then. Bye for now.